If you're like me, you probably have some nostalgia for a video game you played as a child that no one else really played. This may have to do with the fact that the game just simply wasn't too popular, or maybe it didn't sell that well, or just another clone of a better game out there. Well, growing up, my first real gaming console I got into was the original Xbox, and because of that, I didn't have much access to IPs like Mario, Zelda, Jak and Daxter, Crash Bandicoot, Sly, but what I did have though was a plethora of shovelware that tried really hard to be just like those IPs. There's one game that I am particularly fond of because I played it so much growing up with my friends, and that was due to the fact that it was, well, to its core, a Mario Party clone. This party game was called Fuzion Frenzy, and man, this game has some personality, but I think it's better if I check it out with one of my best pals, FalseProof.
Yeah, I figured you'd be kind of lonely talking about a multiplayer game by yourself, and this one is kind of odd. Fuzion Frenzy was brought to you by the king of licensed games, Blitz Games. They also made a weird little title you might know called Glover. After developing a few movie tie-in games, Blitz decided to pair up with Microsoft and power up the Xbox with its own futuristic party game. Fuzion Frenzy wound up being a launch title for the system because there had to be at least one multiplayer game that wasn't Halo.
In this game, you and 4 friends get together to compete in a tournament of mini-games to see who is the best. You can choose one of 6 playable characters with unique personalities and some bitchin' character design. The competitors each go through zones consisting of several mini-games, and you can choose how many zones to go through, which determines the length of the game you'll be playing. In each zone, 3 random mini-games are played, and at the conclusion of each one, the players are awarded orbs for their performance. Once the 3rd minigame is finished, the zone ends with a special
Fuzion Frenzy
minigame. Each player must decide to bank their orbs or to put them into play for Fuzion Frenzy. When you bank your orbs, they are converted into 10 points apiece. The points are used to determine who will win the overall game. The players are then put into an arena, where glowing orbs show up. There are colorless orbs, and orbs that are in a player character's color, which can only be picked up by them. The goal is to dunk them into your goal zone to gain points in about 80 seconds. However, once you have picked up an orb, another player can attempt to steal your orbs by attacking you and taking it for themselves. Whoever ends with the most amount of points from their orbs is the winner.
It always felt like the most important, which isn't really a bad thing because winning the previous games gives you a really huge advantage going into Fuzion Frenzy. I find it keeps it really well balanced in terms of point distribution. It's kind of like the closest thing to losing a star in Mario Party in a mini game. When somebody hits you and they take the orb you're holding, it feels like life or death because this single mini game holds all the marbles. You could completely fail at all the other mini games leading up to this one and still come out on top if you play your cards right and just body everybody. And man, I just want to say that announcer really knows how to make every event so satisfying. Maybe it's just something that's been, imprinted in our brains that just loves anything that sounds like Jet Set Radio, but this voice actor is giving me some hot DJ Professor K, Billy Brown vibes, and I'm here for it.
The character designs also gave that vibe to me, and maybe it just has something to do with the early era of Xbox, but I just love this sort of Rudy punk aesthetic so much. Just by looking at each character, you can tell they all have distinct personalities, and they look so damn cool. Each character is represented by an individual color, which also represents your color of points, orbs, markers, and things of the like throughout your go-through. And one thing we have to talk about is the music, and dog, it is so good. The soundtrack gives me the best early 2000s hip-hop vibes. It is so clean, and I'm sure you can tell the moment you boot up the game. I would constantly just leave the game's main menu open just to hear that theme play over and over again. The samples that are used heavily are just so nostalgic for me now. This game does not have much going for it in terms of story, but there's enough substance and fun gameplay found in it, it'll keep you entertained for hours upon hours with your friends, or even if you're playing by yourself.
I think we should talk about favorite mini games. What are some of your favorites? My personal favorite is the hamster ball game with the rings. And it's basically just trying to rip off that ball iceberg game from Mario Party 2, I think.
Bumper balls, yes.
Yeah, bumper balls. It's basically just bumper balls, but trying to be super cool. It's the game that they show on the box art for Fuzion Frenzy. I also like the rhythm one, and then what's that spiral one? Where they climb up and you have to
jump and duck.
Things.
Oh, that one's so good too. I forget the name of that one.
Yeah.
God.
But sometimes the fun does have to end. The Xbox would grow older and be replaced by its next iteration, the Xbox 360. Fusion Frenzy would sell close to 700,000 copies in North America alone. With figures coming in around $16 million, it's safe to say that a sequel would get greenlit. So we're gonna start playing
Fusion Frenzy 2.
Or not, because it's kinda mediocre.
The game does return with its original 6 playable characters, albeit with some new and neat character designs for them. The aesthetics in this one kind of remind me of Space Channel 5. While the original title had players playing in various zones on a single planet, Fusion Frenzy 2 sets the action across 7 different planets. This time, each player gets awarded with points after each minigame based on their performance. Players who finish first in minigames get special items to use during the final stage. The player with the highest point total wins that particular planet. Afterwards, point totals are reset and play continues on a different planet. The game was ultimately underwhelming due to a couple factors though. Most minigames kind of felt the same, just with different backdrops depending on the planet you're on. The game overall had fewer minigames than the original, not even mentioning that its predecessor had 22 different game modes. The host of the minigames just doesn't shut the hell up between and during minigames, and if the game wasn't long enough, there was this new bullshit card mechanic that the game stops you just to collect for 5 seconds between minigames, and the multiplier card totally breaks the game!
It sounds brutal. I think the worst part about it is it might have bad gameplay. It may just be worse than the original, but the whole point of Fusion Frenzy was trying to make Mario Party for the Xbox. And this time they literally had Hudson Soft develop the game, the actual literal developers of Mario Party. How do you go from making absolutely solid Mario Party title after title and then go in and make a futuristic ripoff that is somehow worse than the original title? I don't know. Fusion Frenzy 2 would largely be a disappointment for everybody involved. Hudson decided to fly away from the Xbox platform, releasing 2 more Xbox Live Arcade titles after Fusion Frenzy 2. The company would buzz away, making games until 2012 when it was bought out by Konami. When the Xbox One launched, Microsoft decided to not make Fusion Frenzy a trilogy, although to be fair, it probably would have been turned into a Kinect-powered nightmare. As of this video, there are no tangible plans for a Fusion Frenzy 3. As for Blitz games, they would just keep making licensed video games. Their track record varied a lot, but Blitz were the minds behind the very infamous iCarly Wii game, the famous Burger King video game trilogy, and of course, Michael Phelps' Push the Limit. However, unlike Hudson Soft, Blitz would eventually fold in 2013, citing failed investments by publishers and the growth of the free-to-play market on mobile devices.
In any case, Fusion Frenzy is a game that tried to pull away the popularity of a bigger party game series, and inadvertently made its own weird success. If it came back in some way today, it could actually do quite well as a local online multiplayer game, in the vein of Screen Cheat or maybe even Towerfall. I'd at least sign up for Game Pass for it. Thankfully, the original title is still playable on all Xbox platforms today, so if you have one of those systems, you should definitely give it a chance. It's complete fun all around.
Alright, that's it for this video. Thanks so much for tuning into The Scent. If you want to learn more about some maybe not so well-known Xbox games, go check out Nate's video on Grabbed by the Ghoulies. It's actually the very first Rare game that was developed for the Xbox after they got bought out by Microsoft. And if you want to learn more about a cult classic series on the Xbox, I make maybe way too many videos on Jet Set Radio Future. So if you want to check all of this out, it's all linked in the description. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you later. Bye.